The phone rings at 8:47 on a Tuesday morning, and the screen shows a local area code you almost recognize. Maybe the dentist's office, maybe the pharmacy, maybe your kid's school. You pick it up. There is a half second of dead air, then a recorded woman's voice with a tight, friendly cadence says your vehicle's factory warranty is about to expire, and this is your final notice. You hang up. 20 minutes later, a different local number calls with a different recorded woman reading almost the same script. Then a third call, a fourth, a fifth, all before lunch. The Federal Trade Commission has publicly stated that the vast majority of unsolicited auto warranty calls in the United States are scams. Industry consumer protection investigators have reported the figure at around 70%, and some independent analyses place it even higher. Think about that for a second. 7 out of every 10 times your phone lights up with that little robotic warmth in the voice, the person on the other end is not trying to protect your car. They are trying to peel money off a stranger. Today, I am going to walk you through the 9 moving parts of how this operation actually runs, because once you understand the machinery, the calls stop feeling like background noise and start sounding like exactly what they are. A loud, coordinated, surprisingly sophisticated attempt to reach into your bank account through a phone you trust. Before we get into the mechanics, one thing to set straight. The auto warranty robocall is not a fringe operation run out of someone's basement. It is an industry with vendors, software platforms, lead generation contracts, and full marketing departments. The reason this category dominates is structural. Cars are something most adults own. The price point on an extended service contract is high enough to justify aggressive sales tactics, and regulatory enforcement has been historically slow. Civil penalties get assessed, the offending entities dissolve, new entities appear under new names, and the cycle continues. This is not a story about a single bad operator. It is a story about an ecosystem that roots around enforcement faster than enforcement can adapt. The first piece of the machinery is the spoofed phone number, and this is where the whole pipeline begins. Most modern phone systems use a protocol called caller ID that was never really designed to prove who is calling. It was designed to display a number. Whether that number belongs to the actual caller is a question the system does not ask. Scam operations exploit this by feeding fake numbers into the call header, and they pick those fake numbers very deliberately. They want a number that looks like it belongs to your area code, because you are more likely to answer a local call than a long-distance one. Some operations go a step further and use what is called neighbor spoofing, where the fake number shares the first 6 digits of your own phone number. If your number starts with 555 to 247, the call might display as 555 to 247 something. Your brain reads that as familiar before your conscious mind catches up. You answer, the call connects, the clock starts on every subsequent step in the funnel. The phone companies have spent years trying to roll out authentication systems that can flag spoofed numbers in real time, and the effort is helping at the edges, but the spoofers adapt fast. The arms race here looks a lot like a flock of starlings dodging a hawk. Every time the hawk learns a new angle, the flock turns inside out and finds a new one. Let me put a face on the spoofed number step. A welder named Tobias Vance, mid-50s, who runs a one-man shop out of a converted barn in rural Pennsylvania, started getting calls in late autumn that all displayed numbers from the area code of the town 12 miles down the road. Tobias picked up the first 3 before he realized something was off. The 4th one came in while he was leaning over a metal seam with a hot torch in his hand. The chime of the phone in his pocket startled him into a jump that flawed the weld. He saw the local number and answered out of habit. Recorded woman. Final notice on the warranty for a truck he had sold the previous spring. The smell of hot flux and singed leather glove was still in the air when he hung up, and that smell bonded to the call in his memory for months. The call script decode is straightforward. The recorded voice opens with a 3-second pause to gauge whether a live human picked up versus a voicemail. Then it leads with the trigger word warranty. The cadence stays clipped and slightly cheerful, Because warmed with urgency reads as suspicious. Every syllable has been tested the way an email subject line gets tested. The goal is to qualify your phone number as live. The second piece is the vehicle identification number scraping, and this is the part most people do not know about. The recorded voice on the other end of the call almost always mentions your specific car, year, make, sometimes model. That is not a guess. Vehicle identification numbers, the 17-character serials stamped into the dashboard and the door jamb, get collected and resold through a tangle of legal and not so legal channels. Some of those channels are dealership databases that leak. Some are insurance broker lists that get sold for marketing. Some are public records from state registries that include vehicle data tied to your address. Once a scrape operation has your VIN paired with your phone number, they can decode the VIN to know exactly what you drive, when it was built, and roughly how long the original factory warranty would have lasted. The recorded message gets tailored to match. You hear a voice say that the warranty on your 2018 crossover is expiring, and you think, well, somebody must have looked that up. Somebody did, they just were not looking it up to help you. There is a small industry that does nothing but harvest and resell automotive lead data, and the line between the legitimate marketing end of that industry and the scam and of it gets blurry in a hurry. The third piece, and this is the one that traps more people than any other single step, is the press to speak to a representative trap. The recorded voice gives you two options: press 1 to remove yourself from the call list, or press 2 to speak with a warranty specialist. Most people, if they want the calls to stop, will press 1. That is the trap. Pressing 1 does not remove you from anything. It tells the system on the other end that this phone number is connected to a live, attentive human being who responds to prompts. Your number gets flagged as a high-value contact and sold to more aggressive operations downstream. Pressing to connects you to a live agent in a call center, and now the real work begins because you have signaled that you are willing to engage. From the scam operations perspective, both buttons are wins. There is no third option that actually gets you off the list. The only safe move is to hang up without pressing anything at all, and even better, to never answer in the first place. Honestly, the most useful thing any of us can do is treat unknown numbers the way we used to treat strangers knocking on the door at dinner time. We do not have to answer just because something is ringing. A quick contrast pair to make the press 1 versus press 2 trap concrete. Consider two phones, both in the same kitchen, both receiving the same call on the same Tuesday morning. The first phone belongs to someone who has read the script and knows the structure. That person glances at the unrecognized local number, lets it ring, watches it go to voicemail, and goes back to making coffee. No interaction, no data signal sent to the operation on the other end. The second phone belongs to someone who has not read this script. That person answers, listens to the recorded voice, gets annoyed, presses 1 to remove themselves from the list, and hangs up. The second phone's number now flashes green on a dashboard in a call center thousands of miles away, gets sold 3 times in the next 48 hours, and starts receiving for 6 similar calls per day for the next several months. Same call, same morning. Two completely different outcomes based entirely on a single button press. The press 1 option is not designed to help you, it is designed to qualify you. That is the most important sentence in this entire script, and I wanted to sit with you as we move on. That brings me to the fourth piece, which is the lead resale market. Once a phone number has been confirmed as a live, engaged contact, it gets sold. Not once, repeatedly, the same phone number may pass through 5 or 6 different scam operations in a single quarter, each one paying a few dollars for the privilege of trying its pitch on you. This is why the calls do not stop even when you start ignoring them. You are now in a database that is being rented out by the week. The economics are brutal. A list of 10,000 confirmed live numbers might sell for a few $1,000s, and a single successful sale of a fake warranty product can generate $2,000 or $3,000 in revenue. So the math works even if the conversion rate is well under 1%. The lead lists also get layered with other information over time. Estimated income based on your zip code, estimated vehicle value based on the VIN, estimated likelihood of payment based on prior responses. Each layer makes the list more valuable, which means more operations want to rent it, which means more calls arrive at your phone every week. It is a flywheel, and once you are on it, getting off takes time. A retired bookkeeper named Anastasia Volkov, 69, who lives alone in a third-floor walk-up in a Midwestern city, kept a paper notebook beside her kitchen phone where she recorded every unknown caller for 6 months. Her notebook shows the resale market in miniature. Week 1, generic warranty operation. Within a week, 3 more from different numbers, same recorded voice pattern. Within a month, the calls have branched into pitches for solar, medical alert devices, and travel clubs. Her number had been sold across categories. By month 4, the calls were arriving from area codes on the other side of the country, which meant the cheaper foreign brokers had bought the data and did not bother with neighbor spoofing polish. The notebook itself was a soft cover with a faded floral cover that had belonged to her late husband, and the smell of cedar from the kitchen drawer was the only sensory pleasure attached to the project. Her experiment proved the flywheel as a measurable pattern. The calls are not random. They are scheduled by software that has decided your number is worth dialing again. It is worth pausing on the resale market because most people underestimate how granular the data has become. Modern lead lists contain a layered profile that may include vehicle trim level, remaining warranty window, neighborhood level address resolution, age bracket, and a behavioral score predicting engagement. Some segment by language preference and best contact time of day. The profile gets richer with every call you answer. By the third sale of your number, you are not really a person to the operation. You are a row in a spreadsheet with a dozen columns, getting more accurate every week. The strongest defense is to give that spreadsheet no new data to learn from. The fifth piece is the bait warranty company itself, the legal-sounding name on the other end of the line. The operations running these calls almost never call themselves what they actually are. They use names that sound vaguely official. National something, American something, United something. Vehicle protection, auto protection, coverage group. The names are deliberately generic because a generic name does not generate search results and does not create a paper trail. The companies often exist as shell entities registered in states with permissive disclosure laws. The agent on the phone may be authorized to sell a product that is technically real in the sense that a piece of paper exists somewhere describing what the product covers, but the actual coverage is so narrow, so riddled with exclusions, and so difficult to claim against that the product functions less like insurance and more like a slow leak from your checking account. The contracts often run 30 or 40 pages of dense type, and the cancellation clauses can be designed to make refunds nearly impossible after a short cooling-off period. Now, before I get into the sixth piece, I want you to hold one specific question in your head. If the fake warranty product is technically a real document, where does the actual money go after you sign up? I am going to come back to that because the answer is more interesting than you might expect. First, 3 more pieces of the machinery. The sixth piece is the fake Federal Trade Commission seal and the borrowed authority, and this is where the operation goes from annoying to dangerous. The agent on the phone, once you are engaged, will often mention government oversight to make the offer sound legitimate. They may reference the FTC, they may reference a state insurance commissioner. They may send you an email after the call with a logo that looks like a government seal at the bottom. The seal is fake. The logo has been copied from a public website and pasted into a marketing template. The FTC does not endorse warranty products. State insurance commissioners do not pre-approve extended service contracts the way the agent implies. But the average person does not know that, and the seal does its job in the background of the conversation. You see the official-looking image, your guard drops a notch, and you stop asking the questions you would have otherwise asked. This is the same trick that mail fraud has been using for 50 years, just transplanted into the digital format. The visual borrowed from authority is a kind of stage prop, and the prop works because most of us were raised to trust the symbols of government on a piece of paper. A short story about how the fake seal trick lands on someone who is otherwise sharp. A man named Harold, retired postal worker, 68 years old, the kind of person who reads the newspaper front to back every morning and knows the difference between a county commissioner and a city council member, got a follow-up email after one of these calls. The email arrived with a header graphic that included what looked like an official seal at the top, a reference number formatted to look like a government case file, and a paragraph of legal-sounding language about consumer protection compliance. Harold spent 20 minutes reading the email before he noticed that the seal, when zoomed in on his computer screen, was actually a slightly blurry copy of a logo from a real federal agency, pasted into a position no federal agency would ever place it. The reference number was random, the compliance language was nonsense, the kind of nonsense that sounds technical until you read it twice. Harold did not authorize anything that day, but he later told me that for the first 10 minutes of reading, he was genuinely considering the offer because the visual framing had done its job. He is a careful man, the framing almost beat him anyway. Most people are not as careful as Harold. The framing beats them more often than it does not. The seventh piece is the offshore call center, and this is where the operation gets its scale. The agents you speak with are very rarely sitting in the country where the calls are landing. They are most often working from rented floors in cities thousands of miles away, in countries where labor costs are a fraction of what they would be domestically, and where the legal reach of local consumer protection agencies is limited. The call centers run shifts that are calibrated to the time zones they are targeting, so the calls land during your daylight hours even though it might be the middle of the night for the agents. The scripts are written by managers who have studied which phrases convert best, and the agents are coached, ranked, and bonused on conversion rates. Some of these centers cycle through agents fast, treating the work as low-skill churn. Others train their agents for weeks and pay them well because a polished agent can close at 3 or 4 times the rate of a green one. From your end of the line, you cannot tell the difference. You just hear a friendly voice that knows your car. The infrastructure behind that voice can involve hundreds of people in a building you will never see, sitting under fluorescent lights, working through call lists that have your phone number on them along with thousands of others. A short story to make the offshore call center step concrete. A friend of mine who works in consumer protection journalism once interviewed a former floor manager at one of these centers, a man who had worked the room for almost 4 years before walking away. The man described a room with about 120 desks, headsets at every station, large flat-screen monitors mounted on the walls displaying real-time conversion metrics for the floor. Each agent's name scrolled across the screens in a leaderboard format, color-coded by performance. The bottom 3 names at the end of each shift were sometimes terminated on the spot. The top 3 earned bonuses that could double a weekly paycheck. The pressure was relentless. The man said the most haunting part of the work was not the customers who said yes, because those calls went quickly and the agents moved on. It was the customers who said no in a way that revealed they were elderly, confused, or financially stretched. Those calls stayed with the agents, he said, in a way that the managers never seemed to think about. The leaderboards did not measure conscience, they only measured close rates. A short detail on the Bait warranty company structure. The contract you sign in a moment of phone call urgency often runs for multiple years, with a recurring charge billed automatically. Cancellation is buried in dense terms of service language and may require certified mail within a narrow window. Customers who call to cancel get routed to retention specialists, whose only job is to talk them out of it. Customers who stop card payments may find unpaid balances sent to collections that report to credit bureaus. The exhaustion is part of the design. The path of least resistance is continued payment. The 8th piece is the recorded consent gotcha. And this one is the most legally slippery part of the whole operation. At some point during the call, usually after you have shown interest in the offer, the agent will read a passage of text and ask you to say yes. The passage may sound like a confirmation of your address or a verification of your understanding of the offer. What you may not realize is that your yes is being recorded, and that recording can later be edited or excerpted to make it appear that you consented to a much broader set of terms than you actually agreed to. The recording becomes the evidence the company uses if you try to dispute a charge later. When you call your bank to reverse a payment, the warranty company can produce a clip of you saying yes, and the dispute often gets denied on that basis. Some operations splice multiple yeses from different parts of the call to construct a consent that never really happened as a continuous statement. The defense here is simple. Do not say yes to anything on an unsolicited call. If you genuinely want a warranty product, you can research it on your own time, in writing, with a contract reviewed in full before agreeing to anything. Let me put a name on the consent gotcha. A schoolteacher named Marcus Beauchamp, 46, in a suburb outside New Orleans, spent 2 evenings in his kitchen trying to dispute a recurring $200 charge he could not place. The line item read as a 6-letter abbreviation. The phone number routed to a tree demanding a contract number he did not have. When he finally reached his bank, the bank pulled an audio clip the warranty company had provided. On the clip, Marcus heard his own voice saying yes 3 times in quick succession. The yeses had been edited out of a longer call in which he had been confirming the spelling of his street name. The bank declined the dispute. The receipt taped to his refrigerator under a magnet shaped like a crawfish became a daily reminder of how thin the line is between a casual yes and a contractual yes. The smell of the strong chicory coffee from those evenings became, in his memory, the smell of a small humiliation. The agent is trained to ask filler questions before the consent passage, so the voice warms up into a rhythm of saying yes. The recording captures all of it. The editing software does the rest. The defense is the same as every step of the funnel. Do not say yes. Do not say no. Hang up. The 9th piece is the $99 down hook, and this is where the money finally moves. The agent will present the offer with a low initial payment that sounds almost trivial. $99 to activate, maybe $149. The implication is that the rest of the cost can be discussed later, after you have had time to review the materials. What actually happens is that the initial payment authorizes the company to charge a recurring fee that may run hundreds of dollars per month, often for years. The recurring charge appears on your statement under a name that does not match the company on the phone, which makes it hard to identify when you scan your statement. By the time you notice the pattern and try to cancel, you may have paid out several $1,000s, and the cancellation process may require certified mail, notarized forms, and a refund window that has already closed. Now back to the question I asked you to hold. Where does the actual money go after you sign up? It goes through a layered chain of payment processors and shell companies that are designed to be hard to trace. By the time consumer protection investigators try to follow the money, it has often moved through 3 or 4 jurisdictions and landed in accounts that local authorities cannot easily access. The $100 you authorized as an activation fee may eventually fund the next round of calls to the next round of phone numbers, and the cycle continues. A quick snapshot for you. I sat with a retired woman named Pauline last spring, 81 years old, sharp as a tack, on most subjects, who had been paying a recurring warranty charge of $189 per month for almost 3 years. She had no idea what the charge was for. The line item on her statement read as a 4-letter abbreviation she did not recognize. Her bank could not tell her what company was behind the charge without a research request. She had paid out over $6,000 to a coverage product she had never used on a car she barely drove. When we finally traced it back, the original sale had happened on a phone call she barely remembered, on a Tuesday afternoon in winter, when an agent with a kind voice had said yes a few times to a question she could not quite repeat. Here is a contrast that might help. A legitimate extended service contract, the kind sold by a manufacturer or a reputable third party, will come to you in writing first, with a contract you can review for as long as you want with a clearly named company you can look up in your state's insurance registry, and with a payment structure you fully understand before you commit to anything. You will never be pressured to decide on a phone call. You will never be told the offer expires at midnight. You will never hear a recorded woman voice with a tight, friendly cadence telling you this is your final notice. Real warranty products do not work that way because they do not need to. The scam products do because the scam only works under pressure. The mid-script question I want to leave you with, in the middle of all this machinery, is whether the calls would even exist if we collectively stopped picking up. The whole pipeline is built on the assumption that a small percentage of every batch of calls will reach a live person who engages. If that percentage drops to near zero, the economics collapse. The lead lists lose value, the call centers lose contracts. The shell companies lose funding, the whole flywheel slows down. None of that happens through a new law or a new technology. It happens through millions of individual people deciding, one ringing phone at a time, not to enter numbers they do not recognize. That is the only defense that scales. Picture a Tuesday morning, maybe 2 years from now. The phone on your kitchen counter rings with a local number you do not recognize. You glance at it, recognize the pattern, and let it ring. The call goes to voicemail, no message gets left. The number tries again an hour later, then once more after lunch, then never again. Across the country on the same morning, millions of other phones in millions of other kitchens are also ringing and also being ignored. Somewhere in a building you will never see a manager. In a fluorescent lit office watches his conversion numbers drop for the third week in a row, calls the client who paid for the lead list, and tells him the campaign is not working anymore. The client cancels the contract, the lead list goes back into the warehouse. The call center lays off a row of agents, the flywheel slows, then wobbles, then stops. The phone in your kitchen sits quiet for the rest of the afternoon and you finish your coffee. If you have ever been hit by one of these calls, or worse, if someone you love has lost money to one, drop the story in the comments. The more we name what these calls are, the harder they get to run.